Okay, here on MetalTalk, we're at the Borderline Club tonight. And with the pleasure of the company of Bernie Torme, who's actually playing his first central London gig for many years. So.
That's true, yeah. I've avoided it like the plague.
You have actually, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But you got a new album out, Flowers and Dirt.
Yeah, that's right.
And let's talk about the album title first. Why do you call it Flowers and Dirt?
Actually, because I couldn't think of anything else. Usual story. I kind of like, I had a plan because it was on a pledge, so I didn't have a title. So I asked all the pledges, I said, can anyone suggest a title? I got about 1,000 replies, and actually they were all, unfortunately, pretty shit. So I kind of like...
That's very honest.
Well, you know, so I kind of, appropriate, only not appropriate to that album.
Yeah.
You know, so it was kind of turning into two types of albums because it was a double album. Mm-hmm. So it was just basically Flowers and Dirt. Only it probably ought to have been Dirt and Flowers, but there you go. So.
And I think it surprised many people that it was a double album. And would you just have a brainwave, write loads of songs at one time, or were these loads of songs that are stored in your memory collectively over the years?
No, it was terror, to be honest. It was just kind of like, I had never got a pledge. I thought, how am I going to get anyone to pledge? And I thought, I know, I'll say it's a double album. And I hadn't actually really kind of planned it or thought too hard about it. I had, I suppose, about 3-4 backing tracks recorded. I had an awful lot of other ideas. I had old songs, but I hadn't got anything approaching a double album. I really hadn't. And after people pledged and it kind of achieved the pledge in 24 hours, it hit it. And I was like thinking, fucking hell, what am I going to do now? I actually have to do, because I did approximately 20 tracks, so I had probably 8 or 9. So I was thinking, fucking hell, I'm going to go up an awful lot of tracks in a small space of time. But being,
And do you think, because of the response that you got from the pledges, because it was just like hit your target overnight basically, do you think that was what gave you the fire in your belly to write so quick?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was, I have never actually really had a problem about writing, because an awful lot of the time, people think I've had jobs out of the guitar playing, and it has been partially the guitar playing, but in terms of kind of in terms of Ian, it was also writing, because I always have Chris.
It's
That's a nice
excuse. You don't want to drink out of that. I'll buy you another.
It's got Ebola on it.
Out of that. Ebola, anything, man. Really don't. So it was. I always have, and I've always written at home. I've always, so it was a challenge, and I enjoyed it. It was great. Really.
And
all shit songs, of course.
not at all. It's been getting great reviews. And was it just Bernie Torme? Was it with the band? Was it a collective effort in writing the songs?
It was no, it was just Bernie Torme.
Oh wow!
Yeah, to be honest. I mean, there is one track that was a joint effort, and it was a joint effort. It was a song I had, but they added an awful lot to it in terms of arrangement, in terms of feel, in terms of all of that, and it became a joint effort. Yeah.
Fantastic.
But I've always been a kind of I enjoy co-writing, but I've always enjoyed writing on the own.
Yeah. And with the pledge, obviously we're both old school, and pledge is quite a new thing. So when did the idea come about? Because I believe you're quite new to it yourself.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
You talk.
Yeah, if you close it. He can't see me at the moment, so. Sorry.
The camera's still already covered, it's great.
Don't tell him. It's. I actually spoke to Ginger.
From Woldheart, Ginger Woldheart, yeah.
And I mean, he's the kind of pope of it, really. He's the kind of the god of all of that. And I kind of, he was extremely positive about it, and then I bumped into Arthur Brown at HRH, and Arthur was doing it, and Arthur's always been a big hero, being crazy and all that. So I thought I'd try it. I spoke to Ginger's manager at the time, and also to Arthur's, and they both said, it's easy. It isn't actually that hard. You just have to be dedicated to it. And I talked to Pledge. Pledge were keen, so I tried it. I had absolutely no idea. I really had no idea at all. It was a great experience. Because you have an amount of direct contact to people that I have never had. If you had a label, or if you had whatever else, it was always, talking to the man, and the man had his opinions on, and it wasn't ever an immediate hands-on thing, and it was great. It was just an emotionally nice experience.
Yeah. Emotionally, yes, in terms of the fans.
I actually felt loved.
Yeah. Right, of course, people still want a Bernie Torme album. And I work with you, and he's standing right behind me right now, Chris Heilmann.
Yes.
And how did you get back with Chris? Because obviously he'd been away in America, at Shark Island, and you worked with him way back in 1986. So fast forward almost 20 years.
Chris and I have always been, pals. We've always kept in touch. At the time I did the D's album, when I was in LA, I stayed at Chris's place in the late 80s, and Chris came back, I don't know, about 2004-ish. And we hooked up again and had a blow, and I was hardly playing at the time, so immediately after that I was involved in the GMT thing. So obviously there was a bass player in place, so Chris wasn't in the picture. Only Chris and I have always been close, and it was, he's such an easygoing guy. He's just great to have in a band.
And the girls like him too.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's a bad point.
And let's talk about the history of Bernie Torme, because you go a long, long way back. Way back to the early 70s. I think it's surprising some people actually. You worked with John McCoy, who later hooked up with Ian Gillan, but he was with him way back.
I first met John in 75 or 76. I had a three-piece, and the bass player left to join Vanity Fair.
Oh, right. They got a ticket to ride, didn't they?
So we auditioned and lied and said, bands, touring, recording interest. We had nothing, absolutely nothing. So John turned up at the drummer's flat, and he had hair.
He did, long hair,
Down to here, man. And he had a tablecloth and shorts on.
Not strange then.
And in, the ad it said, good image essential. And I opened the door, it was like, but it said good image essential. He always stuttering like a motherfucker. He was out of his brains, and he just pissed himself laughing. So we joined kind of really on that,
Fantastic, great. Obviously a great friendship coming out of that. Yeah. And all your early material, it's sort of, you're really a punk rocker at heart.
Well, I was an opportunistic punk rocker. I loved it. The Pistols and all of that. Only prior to that, I had been a hippie. You know, I was like, just like the Damned and all those people. We were all hippies, we all had Afghan coats, and then we suddenly became punks, you know. But it was a great time. I loved all that.
And obviously you went out with some big bands like Boomtown Rats and Generation X. There's an interesting story about how you got the Boomtown Rats gig.
Well, yes, there is a story about that. You've obviously heard it, but I'll tell you again, yeah. So, O'Kelly, who was their manager, who was known by the band as Fuck Knows O'Kelly, so they said, yes, you can support the Rats if you stick up posters. Street posters, graffiti, okay, we'll do anything, doesn't matter, yeah, I'll do it, you know. So, here we are driving around London and our bass player is out spraying a wall. And a chap in plain clothes walks past and says, what are you doing, mate? And he says, I'm spraying a wall, mate. He said, you're nicked. I'm on my way home from the police. So it was like a prison sentence thanks to the Boomtown Rats, you know.
That didn't happen on a Monday by any chance.
Yeah.
And you released, you know, I think they're all fantastic singles. You know, there's songs like Electricity, which is on a compilation album. There's like the Weekend EP, Secret Service. So many good songs. But you never made an album around that time. Why was that?
Well, actually, we did. It was Jet, Don Arden and David Arden. I mean, it was, you know, that was an experience in itself, you know. They jammed us in IBC that at that point hadn't been taken over by Chas Chandler yet. It was, I think it was the remains of the Who's old recording home. And they put us in there to record an album, and we recorded an album, about 10 tracks, and they never put it out. So I think they took 4 tracks off it, and it became the Weekend EP.
Oh, yeah.
And the other tracks I actually released as a punk on what later.
Yeah, posthumously, yeah. About 99 it came out eventually.
It was lying around, and it was an incredibly, you know, well, I mean, every band has it, everyone has it. It was a depressing experience, you know. Here you are, you're pouring your heart out, and you know, no, it's not good enough, you know.
I think it's a shame really, because a lot of punk fans, I think we spoke about this privately before, where there's a lot of avid punk fans out there who collect anything by any obscure punk band, but they don't seem to realise that.
No, they don't. I mean, I was there, Roxy, Vortex, all of those places, and it was, you know, I loved it. It was just, you know, it was energy, and you know, it was a great time to be young and in a band, though I probably wasn't quite as young as some people, but it was just, you know, it was a chance to play, and it was a chance to kind of like learn, hone your skills, you know, and live, you know, because if you were really crap, you died, you know, so it was great, and you know, I was in a band, and Phil and Mark, the bass and drums, they were great. I mean, they were just...
Phil Sporting's still in demand now.
Absolutely, you know, I mean, just amazing. I mean, I was the kind of like dodgy member, if anyone was, really, you know, so...
And obviously, you put your career on hold for a little while. You got a call from, I assume from Mr. Gillan, or was it from Mr. McCoy?
No, it was actually Ian. At the time, it was, I think, late 78, early 79. Jet were losing interest because they spent an awful lot on us. You know, jumped us out and tour again and again and again and again. And, you know, it hadn't happened, you know. So, at that point, I bumped into John again in Soho, and he said, I've joined Ian Gillan's band, and I was going, wow, man, fantastic. And I said, any chance of any sports, maybe? Because at that point in time, we were trying, you know, to change our spots, you know, because it was really the end of punk. And I was, you know, I enjoyed playing guitar solos, you know, that was me. And punks hated that. So it was like, you know,
of course,
kind of go over into the kind of like rock area again. So he said, yeah, okay, I'll ask him. And I ended up having 2 supports at Colchester and Aberystwyth.
And this is supporting Gillan band before you joined, was it? This is supporting Gillan?
Yeah. And it was Steve Burr on guitar and Pete Barnacle on drums, and they were great. And I think second gig there was some sort of kind of crisis that Steve had, and he did an endless down check, and someone came up to me and said, you get up in the sound check and show them what you can do. So I went up and went, you know, as I do, bang, you know, noises. And apparently John had dragged Ian out, and John had actually, you know, planned, you know, all of this, like the devious fucking bass player bastard he is. I love him. And basically, about a week afterwards, I mean, I didn't even have the balls to talk to Ian.
Yeah.
Because Ian was like, God, that's Ian Gillan from Deep Purple, you know? So I had kind of a telephone call and said, hi, this is Ian Gillan. And I was like, oh, can I record this? And he said, do you want to join? He didn't even ask me to audition.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I had to, really.
Fantastic.
It was just...
And for many, myself included, Gillan were like a revelation, you know, like sort of quite a unique band. It's like
great band, yeah.
You know, everybody had an individual character, you know, Anna was joined. There's another band to this day that's ever been like Gillan, the band.
I don't think so. And probably a lesson in that.
But does it sort of annoy you in some ways? It's quite understandable because obviously Ian Gillan is still busy with Deep Purple to this day, so obviously he's got other things to talk about. But does it sort of annoy you that Gillan are overlooked, considering that you were like a top 10 band in the album charts, and you're headlining festivals?
Mean, you know, it is past, and it had, you know, it had its time, and it was a great experience, and it was so badly organised, it was terrifying, you know. I mean, it kind of, I mean, at the point I left, it was, the writing was on the wall. I kind of got, you know, I suppose pointed out as he's a bastard because he left, but it was like, it was easier to make a living outside of it than in it. Mm-hmm. So that was an important thing because I had to make a living, you know. I loved it as a band, it was just an experience. I think it's a terribly sad thing that there hasn't been an attempt to have a reunion along the lines of, you know, the Mott the Hoople. Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone wants, you know, to tour and do all that because it was a bad experience last time, you know. The money all went astray and it wouldn't be possible because I don't think any of us would ever be able to agree on a manager. Mm-hmm. Enough said.
Yeah.
I mean, that isn't, you know, painting anyone as evil, bad, or anything else. It was just chaos. I mean, I had a life out of it.
Yeah.
You know, and
of course,
I'm glad of that. You know, and you know, however much, you know, tens of thousands went astray at that point in time, I don't care. I had a life out of it.
Also, just to remind people who are not watching this, like the infamous story goes, like you were in Germany, there's a call to go on top of pops from No Love in Heaven. You also have had enough of this, and Ian Gillan says to you, if you're not on, you know, if you're not on the plane in the morning, you're out of the band. Yeah. Is there any more you'd like to add to that?
Well, yeah.
Was you calling this bluff at the time? Was you calling this bluff at the time?
No,
anyway?
at that point, I had been trying to see the accounts for 3 months, 4 months. I mean, it was, you know, it was 2 years in. I had a record deal, okay? I had been on check. Record labels provide accounts, even if it's 0. So I'm staying where are the accounts? We were having a situation that Ian was telling everyone was on a split. The guy who was his agent and had been gradually appointed his manager was saying no split. I was on peanuts. You know, I don't actually fucking care about the money. It's about honesty. You know, it's about your relationship. So, Spalding, Phil Spalding was in Toyah at the time.
That's right, yeah.
And he said, "Burr, fucking great, I'm doing Torme Raps again, and we're getting 60 quid every time we do it." And I said, "Hold on, I don't know about this." And I said, "What about the MU payments?" I mean, this is petty and boring. Only it's an issue. You know? It was an issue at the time, considering I was only on £30 a week. You know, so it's an issue. So I went and said, "What is happening about the Top of the Pops MU payments?" "Oh, that's all going to Virgin." And I said, "Well, I never signed that. I never agreed to that. I never signed anything. I had an agreement that I was getting a split, and we'd already just had a tour that had 60 grand on merch."
And he toured extensively.
Okay. 60 grand, not a penny for the band, not an extra penny. We'd had kind of Christmases, and Ian would say, "It's traditional at Christmas, everyone has a double payment." No fucking payments at all. So like everyone was going, Christmas has got to stop, we got no money. You know, it was so badly organised. I don't blame Ian. You know, Ian hadn't a great amount of interest in, you know, the petty detail. He had his own problems, and I love Ian, you know. But it was just, well, as a band, man, if you're gonna organise a band, you have to organise a band, and everybody has to basically feel justified. The problem was the people who were running it just had an interest in Ian touring, copping all the money, and no interest in the band at all. You know, and it was just impossible.
It's a shame. I can understand it because like England is a big name, you know, the name's after him. But obviously the fans did look at Skidden as a band. The fans certainly did. You know.
I mean, you know. Basically, I was always an ant compared to Ian, and I still am. You know, only I'm. You know, I'm happy to be an ant if I'm. You know, if I'm being treated honestly.
Let's move forward. You did move on with your solo career. Let's get just before I move away from Gillan. Obviously, Gillan they just carried on and got Janet Gers in from White Spirit at the time, who's known Iron Maiden. Obviously, they made the album Double Trouble, which features some of your live tracks actually, and also the album's Magic. Are those two albums you can listen to?
I can't actually really listen to any of them. I mean, it's I would have to say that as an artiste, after I've played on an album, I've got no interest in it. It's dead. You know?
What, even the Gillan albums that you played on as well?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I hate. I mean,
is that because you always feel like you want to change this and change that?
I mean, I've heard them so many times. I played them, and you know, to me, if I play them again, it's just Jesus. I did that. I should have done that. You know, it's a strange thing.
Is that the same for yourself?
About it. I mean, I prefer to hear anything I haven't played on than anything I have played on.
Is that the same for your solo career then?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, entirely. Every time I tour, I have to dig them out because I don't play them, I don't even remember them, and I relearn them, and I kind of think, fuck, I could have done that better. You know, it's a really strange thing. I mean, it's
Anyway, you left Gillan, you went straight into your solo career, and you actually had a top 50 album. Actually, Turn Out the Lights. Camouflage Records. Great album, and not long after that, Electric Gypsies. And great band. It's a 3-piece. Frank Noon and Everton Williams. And those albums, I don't think you can get them on CD. Have they been re-released on CD anywhere in the UK?
They have actually, I mean, unfortunately, they're both deleted at the moment. They are out in Japan at the moment. But it's
exactly. Marquee Club is Japanese.
But I mean, I would hope to put them out again, you know. But it's I don't know. It's, you know, again, you know, I ought to have had a manager, because as an artist I don't fucking care about the past. It's just
You also recorded a live album at a time, live at the Marquee, and obviously single final that days, like 40 minutes long.
Yeah.
Have you still got the whole entire recordings from that show?
I haven't, because you know, the other problem was tapes. The tapes are only like a quarter of an hour, so it's basically when the tape begins and runs out. There isn't any other tracks. There was halves of tracks, but no other tracks. So,
That's a shame.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the Marquee, because you played there so many times. I saw you there myself, and I always like asking artists this question, you know, because it was a fabulous place. What's your memories of the Marquee? What's it mean to you?
I just really liked it. It had, you know, the point I played there first, it was, what, 10 years after, no, it wasn't even 10 years, it was, I suppose, 8 years after Hendrix played, and you know, it just had that thing. It was the real deal. Everyone had played, you know, the Stones, everybody played it. It was just, I mean, it was a hellhole. I mean, it was like sticky, it was like, you know, watered down beer, shit food, you know, horrible dressing room, but it was just nice. It just had that coolness about it, and all of the people, you know, like Nigel and all of the people after him, they were so easy, you know. They kind of, you know, you'd have a laugh and they'd pay you and you could argue about the money, you know, as I often did. But I mean, they were great. They were just like
fantastic,
authentic people.
And obviously in 1982, and fair enough, it's a sort of a part of your life. I mean, we're talking about 10 days here, basically, where people talk about more about it now than what they did at the time. But obviously, you got a call from the Ozzy Osbourne camp. Obviously, Randy Rhoads sadly tragically died in a plane accident, and you was thrown at the deep end. And how did that come about?
Well, it basically happened, I think, because I had been on Jet during the punk era, and I joined Ian. I had become a name in Europe and England, totally unknown in America. So,
had you played in America? Good in America?
Yeah. We did a tour. It was an absolute fucking disaster. You know, it was just like, you know, typical English band at the time.
So obviously going to Ozzy, it was obviously the height of his game.
Yeah. I mean, he was, you know, I had no idea how big Ozzy was in the US. You know, I was like, I had a call. Have you heard Randy's dead? No. And to be honest, I hadn't even heard him at that point in time. I had heard of him. Yeah. Only I hadn't actually heard anything he had played on, because at the point Ozzy had toured the UK, we had been in Europe, so I knew nothing about him. I would go around places and everyone would say, have you seen this guy? He's amazing. I hadn't heard him, so at the beginning, it was just at the point in time I had a deal on Turn Out the Lights. I've held an agent, I had a tour booked, and they called up and said, you know, are you able to go out and help us? I didn't know anything about it. I thought it was probably, you know, gigs on the level Ian had been playing in the US, basically Agoras or whatever they call them, and I mean, ours had been empty, so I could kind of say, no, I can't do it, really. And they kept on calling, and they called Ian's management. I was on speaking terms, and they said, you've got to do it, he's huge in the US. And I mean, at that point in time, I was penniless. I was fucking penniless. I had a marriage breaking up. I was, you know, like, not in a good space. And they basically talked me into it. Even though I thought at the time, I thought it was, you know, Black Sabbath. I mean, that isn't a diss on Tony Iommi because he's amazing, you know. Only I knew Tony Iommi and that picture of how he played, and I'd have been able to really fairly easily do that.
And we got to remember at the time, Ozzy's career at that time was only 4 years after he left Sabbath, so we took the short space of time.
So I kind of said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Only it's only temporary. I can only do a month. Okay, no problem. And the problem was it was David Arden who I was talking to, and David had also said, Bernie, it's $2,000 a week. And I was thinking, fucking hell, I've got no money. You know, this will pay the rent for a while anyway. You know, so I said okay, and then I had a call from Ian's manager. He says it's 2,000 a week. You get a week's pay from him up front because he's not going to pay you otherwise. So I kind of called back, and I mean, you know, Jet, new Jet, Don and David Arden. I mean, it was like a land of lies, to be perfectly honest. So I called him up and I said, yeah, David, okay, I'll try it, because he said, no auditions, you're in, you know, $2,000 a week. So I said, well, if there's no auditions, David, I want a week's pay up front, because I'm going to be going out there and rehearsing, and it'll be a week. And it was like, oh. So it dragged on, and they then had tickets there. I picked up the records, and it was vinyl. Brought them home, played them, and thought, oh fuck, you know, this is not easy. This is like.
I was just about to get to that, because obviously Randy Rhoads and you're both phenomenal guitar players, but you had two completely different styles.
Yeah. And I mean, the reason I think they kind of thought about me was I had blonde hair and I had a whammy bar. And I was also a guy who had been on Jet, you know, so I wasn't, you know, it was like, I brought it home and it was like, for fuck's sake, you know, this is so hard, this is, and I mean also, they never told me the tracks that they were playing live. So I'm like, 2 albums, about, I don't know, 18 tracks, and I mean, they obviously ain't playing 18 tracks live off those albums. So I'm trying to learn everything in a day. It was just a nightmare, man.
Was you expected to play similar to Randy, or was you given free rein and just like go out there and be yourself?
That was of course an argument, really, because I had no intention of playing identically. I wouldn't, even if I'd been able to, because I thought that was an insult to the guy. I mean, you know, he was a one-off. It'd be as if, you know, the Jimi Hendrix experience had carried on with the Jimi Hendrix clone after Hendrix died. It's, you know, that isn't what you do. I'm a musician. I play it the way I play it. If you don't like it, fucking fine. I don't care, you know. But I hadn't any intention of even trying to be a clone. So I went out to the airport. They had tickets, and I was told the $2,000 was being biked over to my home in Richmond. I check in and they say, this is a single ticket. I say, yeah. You can't fly to America on the visa you have on a single ticket. I said, oh. So back, I call home and I say, has the money arrived? No. So I said, fuck it, I'm going home. So I call David and I say, no money, David, wrong ticket, don't fuck me around. I don't enjoy this. You know, if you don't want me to go there, cool, that's okay. But, you know, you asked me, I didn't ask you, you know. So I head home. The next morning, a ticket comes out again, and $2,000. So I head out to LA, and I don't talk to anyone other than Don Airy. It was not a pleasant experience.
So, obviously, there's a lot going on. Manager's gone.
Yeah, I mean, the last guy they want to have out there is me or anyone. They wanted Randy. So, Sharon is trying to get it to roll on. Hats off to her. That was the only practical thing to do, but it was a horrible situation. There was an awful lot of people there, crew, to come in the band who just wanted it to roll on because it was payday. I mean, so then it was audition. And I'm kind of saying, well, David said there wasn't going to be an audition to Sharon, and Sharon says, don't be stupid. This is going to be an audition. I said, of course there is, Sharon, fine, So I audition, I get it, and he, says, Bernie, you've got the gig. Pay is, I can't remember what it was, just something like $200 a week or $500 a week. I said, but David said it was 2,000. She said, David doesn't know what he's fucking talking about. David's on drugs. I said, all right, I don't mind. Only I've had all of this cash. It means you don't have to pay me for a month, So it's like, it was strange. It was strange.
And regarding the very first gig you did with Ozzy, was it touching clock moment for you before you went on stage?
It was absolutely. It was a fucking nightmare because. We hadn't had rehearsals. I played 4 tracks on the auditions. I had only found out after that what the step was and the arrangements. And an awful lot of the arrangements were completely different. But there was an extra track that hadn't been recorded. So I had to learn everything, and this is all on a fucking cassette. And the other thing was no one in the band knew what Randy played. They were not guitar players, so it was, here I am, fucking trying to, on Walkman, trying to hear things. I'm jet lagged to fuck, I'm in terror, because it was just like, it was, so first gig, I didn't have my pedal board, I didn't have my amps, I didn't have my spare guitar, and there was D-tunes. So, and Ozzy's going, I fucking hate Stratocasters, why can't you play a Gibson? I said, I don't like Gibsons, I'll play a Strat. It fucking sound like shit, man. So it was like...
And what was your feeling when you walked off stage the first night? Was it relief, or was it thank God for that?
It was relief, because I hadn't died. No one had shot me, they wasn't thought about it, and the rest of the band,
And I'll say it was a sort of must have been a trying time for everybody. But there's a photo you put up on Facebook recently, actually, and it's quite a funny photo. It's like you, Ozzy, and Don Airy.
Yeah.
I think it's quite a funny photo. You got your infamous Chelsea boots, and Ozzy's got them on his head. And
that's right.
It looks like a donkey.
I had that picture. Yeah.
So obviously there must be some funny moments.
Oh, there was, but I mean, I had these boots, same type of boots. And Tommy Aldridge said, man, you walk around the streets in Dallas, you fucking die if you wear boots like that. I'm looking at him and he's in kind of like, Ponzi sneakers or something like that. Sorry, Tommy. And I said, you walk around Brixton and them at this point in time, you fucking die. So it's like, but I mean, they were all really nice to me. I mean, everyone. It was just a horrible time, because here I am on stage, at the point anyone looks across, and I mean, playing in a band, it's about that bond between, the band and the audience. At the point anyone looked across at me, it was blatantly obvious that, they looked across because they thought it was okay, or they thought I'd made a fucking horrible mistake. But if they thought it was okay, it was, oh shit, it's not Randy. I mean, it must have been so hard, man.
Must have. And is there any live recordings? Has anyone got any live recordings under the bed from your time with Ozzy?
No decent ones. I've heard some absolutely.
Yeah, there's some on YouTube, but not very good recordings.
Yeah, just awful. I've never heard of them.
Yeah, it's a shame. Anyone out there's got one hidden?
I'm glad to say, at least on those bootlegs, you know, it's so kind of interesting.
And before I wrap this interview up, it's been great talking to you, but I must talk to you about your tenure with Widowmaker, D. Schneider. Obviously, your sister folded, you were spare, and Clive Burr, former Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
And just tell us why that band, because it was a great band. Sort of the album came out posthumously, it's been released under 2 different titles, but why did Widowmaker never get on the road and get going and get the album out?
Well, I don't know. I don't think Dee wanted to tour. I actually think because of the experience at the end of Twisted, I think he had a problem about what had happened. Because they had done a stadium tour in the US. It hadn't stalled. I think he had the horrors about it. At the point that it started, it was just endless. I think we wrote 86 songs, something like that. I mean, it was just like stupid, you know. I mean, how, you know, at any time, you know, it would. And I mean, actually, the tracks on the album were obviously gonna be the tracks of the album at the beginning, just about. There was a couple of other tracks added, but it was just endless. And Dee, I think, early on, we were asked to be special guests on a Motorhead tour of Europe. I really wanted.
That would have been fabulous, actually.
Yeah. Clive did too. Dee did not, and Dee taught our bass player at the time, Mark Russell, who was, you know, a young guy and impressionable. He's an impressionable now, he's just not a cock like I am, in case he ever sees this. But it was sort of, you know, Dee had, because it was Dee, he had the casting. And he said no, they'll hate us. And I don't think I've ever been in a band, ever, that I've liked the audience have hated. You know, it just fucking, you know, I know, you know, that any band I've ever been in, especially with Clive, Clive was incredible, you know, and Dee. But Dee had a crisis about his persona. You know, because he has that great, you know, New York thing. He did not want to do that on stage with Desperado. He's got to do it, you know. I mean, it's like the most entertaining part of the gig.
Yeah, he is.
Apart from the guitar solos, of course. But I mean, it's, you know, it was a strange time. I mean, it was all, you know, that period of time of the battle. You know, tried to get the largest advance you could.
And I suppose actually, because like you're still good friends with Dee Schneider.
Yeah, I love
you know. And let's quickly talk about Clive Burr briefly, because I know you was at his funeral last year. And who is Clive Burr? You know, just tell us more about Clive as a person.
Clive was just a lovely, funny guy, great drummer, piss taker. You know, dangerous if he was handling money, I've got to say, Clive, you know, because it would be kind of basically up his nose, it kind of like, I mean, I loved it. He was just, you know, he took the piss out of me all the time, but, you know, it was just